Hi guys, Serge.Rodnunsky for home sales and loans. Let's talk about the 5 must-dos for selling your house. I'll list them all quickly and then I'll go into detail. One is experience of your agent. It's really important that you have an agent that has done it a long time and is really experienced. You know, when you've seen a lot of different issues when selling and buying homes and also the financing of homes. So you've seen all the pitfalls in detail. Number 2 would be your expectation on price and on your moving timing. Obviously you're selling and you want to get the most money, but you also have to consider your timing because the market may be supportive of that, and generally it's a seller's market. But you know, your expectation on price and then your timing. If you have your price set for very, very high, it may take longer. Number 3, all the different things you do to clean up and sell your house or upgrade, and what are the smartest upgrades to do. Number 4, do you do inspections, pre-inspections before, and how important is that to the sale of the house? It can really benefit, and those are considerations how much you might want to spend on inspections and repairs prior to listing. Number 5 is all the legal and things that the agent should know: how to vet buyers, how to make sure that what to give on with buyers potentially if they're little things, or when to potentially kick buyers out of the deal if they're not performing. Most buyers will have issues. There's going to be back and forth in any escrow on different things. It could be from inspections to negotiating on small items. So it could also be on negotiating on timing. So those are all really important things. So the 5 things again are experience of the agent and a really strong negotiating agent. Expectation 2 is expectations on price and your timing. 3 is curb appeal and upgrades to the house, cleaning. Number 4 would be pre-inspections, and number 5, all the legal and escrow and how you're closing the deal to get the best price and the safest for you legally. All right, let's go into detail on each one. Number 1, the experience, like location, experience. Really important that I'm an excellent selling agent and buying agent. I've seen tons of transactions. Local agent's going to know the area very well, should be doing everything possible to market your house and market at the highest value. Now, what does that entail? Well, obviously, there's the obvious things like excellent photography of the house, but the house needs to be clean. Now, the rule of thumb, so you know, the easiest houses to sell are extremely clean, very bright, smell great, and have been staged very well and are neutral colors. So there's nothing exotic or crazy, and as best as the house can look and staged. The next best is a completely empty house where there's no furniture, nothing to identify. People don't want to walk into your house and when you're selling and see all the pictures of you and your family. They can't identify themselves in the house. So it's just human nature. So don't expect people to have a great imagination when it comes to your house. They're not going to see, if you tear out this wall, you could open up the kitchen and all that. They don't have extensive visual ideas unless they're developers. So you really want to make sure the house is super clean, and we'll go into that in upgrades, and the experience of the agent in the local area. So the marketing, so the photography, if it's staged, is great. It should be super wide photography, bright. And then as far as marketing out to the public, open houses are great. You should be doing those regularly. And because you never know, people are just walking around, and right now it's pretty much a seller's market, so you're going to get offers fairly quickly, but not like, but it's usually within 30 to 60 days now based on the timing, and it really depends on your price. So setting your price is in the next section, but that's critical. Your agent should be a local, fairly close to you, although I've sold all over most of Southern California. Mostly all the way from Orange County all the way up to Santa Clarita and all the way out to San Bernardino, all the way to Santa Barbara. So that, for me, that's local. Now, also, the showings, it's just natural. The more your house is available for showings, the better. So if you have a very limited or restricted showing, that makes it much harder. You're showing to less buyers. So sunlight is the great cleanser, so you want to be exposed to the most sunlight as possible. On the MLS, on all the different websites, automatically you'll be on all the different websites, Trulia, Redfin, Zillow, etc., that your house is for sale, and on the MLS, etc. So all the agents will see it. So it's important to have a super clean and smells great, super bright, lots of extra lights, fresh plants, and also to be available for showing almost any time of day, every day. And then open houses. You really want to, if you want to sell something, you got to have it available for people to see. Obviously, if you're living in the house when you're trying to sell it, there's limitations, and that's just what it is. But you do try to set pretty active selling schedule. What else? The agent should be extremely experienced. So they have to have seen, it's really important that they've seen a lot and of transactions, and they can vet the buyers. Vetting buyers is calling to make sure that their financing is in good shape and they've got all the proper down payments, disclosures, and kind of the rule of thumb is up until escrow opens and you've accepted the offer, it's pretty much a seller's got all the leverage. After escrow's open, the buyer doesn't have all the leverage, but the buyer tends to have more leverage because you're kind of hanging on them, waiting for them to execute the things that are required in the contract. And they're all set in the contract. All the different parameters are set up forth in the purchase agreement. Really important to have a super sharp agent, and it's really on top of it and is very diligent about making sure that the buyers are staying. But that first, you're seeing a ton of buyers, and then vetting the buyers, and then making sure that the buyers execute properly in escrow. Very on top of it, escrow and title. And usually, as a seller, you're going to dictate the escrow. Well, of course, you'll generally, almost always, dictate who the escrow company is and who the title. And I work with a really great escrow and title, so they're really on top of it. And as a selling agent, I stay really on top of it. So every call is like immediately returned. Now, sometimes there's things that come up. The buyers have issues with their financing. There's always issues with financing. So they have to jump through a million hoops to get their financing. The other rule of thumb is if their buyer's not performing, I tell them right up front, look, if you're not performing, we're going to send you over non-performance. And they're going to have to perform. Otherwise, we kick them out. So we don't want to do that, but this is business. It's not, nice guy. Now, if you have the buyer's legit and they're just taking a little extra time, you may always consider giving them time, but a lot of times the deal could fall apart and you're going to just waste your time. Sellers make their evaluation on which agent to choose based on the agent telling them what they think they could sell it for. Okay, now that seems obvious. You would think, okay, well, this agent said if your house is worth $1 million, he can definitely get $1.2 million for it. Or $1.4 million, let's say. And another agent comes in and says, oh, I can get $1.2 million. And you're making your evaluation on which agent, says they're going to be aggressive and sell it for $1 million, $200,000 more than you think it's even worth. That is not a good strategy at all. That will fail. Because what are they doing? They just want your listing. So they're going to get the listing, and then they're going to beg you down as it goes till you get to the $1 million, where the offers are all at. But this takes time, and potentially you may end up with even less than $1 million. Now you may be at $950 because you have all these price reductions. Smartest thing, and sharp agents will tell you, is price it right, take in the most offers, vet the offers. That is always the best strategy. If you price too high, you're going to kill off a large part of the market. The buyers, most of the smart buying agents, if they have agents, won't bring their client to you, won't bring the clients through because they know that you're shopping for, they have to fall in love with the property. I don't know if you've ever looked on eBay or any of these auction sites where they have pricing, or anywhere you look, on Amazon or wherever, and let's say you want to buy a hammer, and you see one hammer, it looks good, and you see the picture, and it's $20, okay? And then you look on another website, and the exact same picture almost, and the same thing, selling for $40. And you're like, why is that website selling it for double? And you kind of go back to the original one saying, well, it's worth it, and you see another one for 22 and another one, is 19, but you don't know if that's a legit website. And so you kind of see where the price is, and you'll stay over there. You won't go over to this $40 website. It looks very suspicious. Why would it be so much higher? So your buyers are smart. They'll do that. Now you're going to say, well, maybe the wife will come in and fall in love with my house the way I love my house, and we'll talk it up. I don't know, 1 in 20 people buy on value, on comps, and then maybe they'll consider. I'm even talking in a market that's heavily favored as sellers. They still won't go. Generally, they won't. People won't walk in, and it happens. I'm not going to say it never happens, but it happens. But it's not the norm. Generally, people walk in, they look, because they're looking at a lot of homes. Let's talk about number 2, expectation on price and timing. By the way, I seem very chill and mellow, and maybe you have a different, whatever impression you have of me. I am very on top of it and tough when it comes to negotiations and also getting your home sold. But you got to understand that aggressively working for a seller is not always like the perfect thing, because you got to also court in buyers. So you have to use the feminine a little bit. You get more with honey. You're attracting in buyers, and so you want to seem available and you want to seem nice so that you can get buyers in who are interested. If you're just a tough, domineering person for your seller, that's great in negotiations and everything, but at the same time, you are going to potentially scare away buyers that might be a great buyer for you. Expectations on price. When you see, so you can go anywhere on a million websites and see your expected value on your home. Okay, so you can go and get a Zillow estimate, a Trulia, a Redfin, Realtor.com, whatever, and see, where they're kind of giving you a valuation on your home. And you can look at some of the comps in the area. Comps are tough, though, because they're not explaining exactly all the nuance and detail of your home. I'll give you an example. I was selling a house in Beverly Hills at about $3.5 million. It was showing up on Zillow as $9 million. Now, why was that? Well, Zillow doesn't always have a vertical aspect. So the house next door, which is up a lot and up a hill, was on top of the bluff, right, with a big, huge view of all of the city. And so that one was going for 9 or 11 million, and we were down in the gully at the bottom with no view at all and kind of on a busy street. So it looked like when you comped us, we were worth 7-8 million, but we were really only worth 3.5 million. So that can happen a lot. So in these there's all different kind of things. So when you're comping, trying to figure out what's your house worth, there can be other other factors. Obviously, there's upkeep of the home. If you haven't been able to keep your house super up to date. Now, up to date doesn't always mean like it's not clean or it's functionally great. It can mean that you haven't done a full renovation on the house in the last literally 3 to 5 years. So if you're not in the styles in the last 3 to 5 years and you have a beautiful house that you upgraded 10, 15 years ago, those may not be counting now. So when you're looking at a comp, you may say, well, this house down the street from me sold for $1.8 million. But have you walked through the house? If the house has been renovated in the last, let's say, year, that's going to create a huge value increase on that house that your house may have not been upgraded. So, or vice versa, if you're the richest, nicest house on the block, square footage wise and all that, you may be pulled down by the rest of the block because the houses comps are low because they're maybe 1,000, 2,000 square feet lower. So your expectation on price. Now, you're going to sit there and go, somebody's going to walk in and fall in love with this house and pay $300,000 more. It happens, but rarely, okay? So if you're setting your house super high with the expectation that somebody's going to walk in and fall in love with it, or I'll start super high and then we'll come down slowly. That's usually not a good selling strategy. First of all, it's going to take a long time, and it also makes it look like you potentially have a fatal flaw in your house. What does that mean exactly? Well, if let's say your house comps at $1 million and you set it at $1.3 million or $1.4 million, and say, well, somebody might walk in and pay $400,000 more than pretty much the general going price at $1 million is, and then you decide, well, we'll slowly take it down, over time, over 4 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. It just looks like there's something defective with your house. So people are walking in, they see power lines in the backyard, or there's a huge earthquake crack across your slab, or things like that where people are going, or there's potential mold or whatever. But it makes it look like people have made offers on it, but you're too difficult, so they don't want to deal with it. And so buyers are scared away when they see multiple price reductions. And agents will see that immediately because it comes right up on the MLS. So if you started at, your house is comping at $1 million and you go to offer it at $1.4 million, and then on the MLS it's been up there for 4 months and you see multiple price reductions, now you're down to $1.1 million, you're still not at price where people would make substantial offers. So it makes you look weaker, and potentially you may end up not even being able to sell it at price because you've had so many price reductions. And people are cautious. You're not getting much offers. So I hate to say this, but a lot of times the first offer is the best offer because you have the most people seeing it, the most competition from the buyers. You're fresh fish. You're out there once, and you're going to see maybe multiple offers if you're priced right. So kind of the idea that most agents will tell you is price right, take in as many offers as you can, and then evaluate the offers. And potentially do a multiple counter offer where, if you have 4 solid offers and you're going to put out a counter offer with a time. But if you start super high, that could be a problem in the ultimate sale of your house. It may mean that you're just not ready to sell. So, or you just have to get a price. If you come into a sale of a house with having to get a price, like I won't go anything below, and I have to net out of this $500,000. And if I don't get $500,000 net out of this, I'm not going to sell. Well, I don't know, really, obviously it depends on the math, but the more, your first mortgage and what you can net, but coming in with the net price isn't usually a good selling strategy. The market will be what the market is. So maybe it's your timing or the people selling the house, or you're not presenting the house well, and then you may have to rethink it. So let's move on to the best things to sell your house. Okay, so let's talk about the third thing, curb appeal and upgrades before selling a house. Well, you don't want to have to invest a lot of money into your house before selling it, unless you're a developer and you bought a fixer. If you're just an average person and you lived in your house for X number of years, 20 years or 10 years or 30, and you need to sell, you don't want to spend a ton of money upgrading it just to sell it, because there's a critical factor is that, are you going to get a 1-for-1? If I put $30,000 into this partial kitchen or a semi-kitchen rebuild with a lot of stuff, am I going to get $30,000 more? But it's going to have to be $30,000 plus my time plus financing on that money. Let's say it's $50,000 putting in a new kitchen, or $80,000 or whatever it is. Or should I put in all new flooring? Or should I? So obviously you want to spend the least amount, and you want to get at least maybe more than 1-for-1. And kind of the rule of thumb is the areas that are important, super important, obviously just the general upgrade of the front yard, not huge landscaping, but simple stuff like a fresh lawn and clean yard, and maybe fresh plants in the front yard, just so the curb appeal, first walking up to the house. And then as you come to the house, it should be super bright. So with no exotic colors. You're not, if you have a bright orange dining room or something like that, it may look cool, but at the same time, it may not. It work for everybody. So painting is super cheap comparatively. So painting, fresh paint, and especially in the first impression. And then the next would be doing basic stuff that, the kitchen. So the first into the house, and then the kitchen and the bathrooms. So those are the things that people are going to be looking at right off the bat, and they're going to get their first impression. So the first impression is critical. Landscaping, simple landscaping, clean up the house, clean it. Super clean house, super great smelling, super bright. So if you have to add a lot of lights, make sure all the lights are functioning. It smells great, and it's super bright. So clean all the windows. Just general cleaning is really important. Now, again, as I said, the easiest thing to sell is a super clean, bright house, smells great with staging. Okay, so it's neutral staging. And usually if you look at staging, and the furniture is small, so the rooms look huge. So they don't put a big, huge bed in the master. They put a queen or things like that. The next easiest to sell, having sold 1 million homes, is just an empty house. Super clean, just neutral colors, whites and beiges and just maybe grays, but super clean. If it's got your furniture in it, nothing on the walls. So you don't want your paintings and your pictures of your family and things. Those are great for you, but somebody coming in to see themselves in the home doesn't identify with those things. Plus, they may feel that they're imposing by buying this house from you in some psychological way. So they don't want to have your memories in the house. They want to have their own, and so a fresh new house. Fixing anything that's broken, if there's light fixtures that are broken, or if there's tiles in the floor, or if there's damage to the floor in an area, the hardwood is damaged, you might want to get handymen in and fix up little things so everything looks clean. I know I walked into one house, they had a throw rug on they had these very expensive marble tiles in the front foyer, and they put a throw rug down over one of the marble tiles. And pretty obvious that people were going to pick up the throw rug, and there was a smashed marble tile there, which is, it was a $5 million home, and, people see this smashed tile first thing, and, they pull the throw rug away and they see this tile. It's not a good impression. Now, we haven't even seen the house yet, and we're already thinking about, well, if that's broken, what else? You want to have lived and spent that money on yourself. So if you put in a new kitchen just to sell the house, you're like, well, gosh, I would have loved to have had that new kitchen the whole 20 years I was there. So putting in hundreds of thousands, unless you're a developer, not such a great idea. Also, your tastes. I had one crazy one. Before I even got there, the lady had started a total kitchen remodel to sell the house. And she was a Barbie girl. And she made the kitchen hot pink. So a hot pink kitchen. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen, $80,000 she spent or $100,000 she spent on that kitchen with all this hot pink marble. The first thing though, new buyers would come in and would tear out that whole kitchen. Even though she just spent $100,000 on that, they're going to tear out that whole kitchen because that's just not, nobody has that taste unless another Barbie girl, but how rare is that? Okay, so again, 1-to-1 or 1.5-to-1. And number 4, pre-inspections. So you really kind of need to know, because it's going to come up, what defects there are in your house. Just to make sure you have the roof is great, in good shape, the basic stuff, going through the house. You can pretty much tell if you've had leaks and things. But these will all come up later and after inspections, and it will be points of contention. So if your roof's a mess, and that will be a point of contention. You go to close, on $1.2 million, let's say, and your roof is trash. It needs to be replaced, and it's a $50,000 replacement. That will be come up in the inspection, and you'll have to now negotiate that. Okay, so the agents will try and figure out what's best, and you may have to take a price reduction to make that happen. So those are always questions. So you really kind of want to know if you have some things you may not even have known about your house. I've had a couple, we did a pre-inspection, and we didn't even know that the plumbing was all messed up to the jacuzzi. And it was cracked underneath, and it had to all be fixed. It was all built-in jacuzzi. So it was an item. It came up. It was $3,000. Or in Malibu, they have a whole thing. Well, Malibu is such a mess. But sometimes in the transfer of title in Malibu, the whole issue of septic tanks comes up, and whether it's current code or previous code, these things come up. The new selling a house, you're required to bring it up to current code. Access pipes, and now they're 18-inch pipes and things like that. So that, that's a $7,000 or $10,000 change. So sometimes pre-inspections I would recommend them so you at least know what you're dealing with prior to sale. Again, the rule of thumb is don't go into it thinking you're going to hide defects from the buyers. That's why you have an agent, okay, to kind of keep you in the clear on that. That's why for sale by owners get sued 9 times out of 10, and homes listed through agents don't. It's because they're going to keep you from doing things that are not in your own best interest. Because if they come up an inspection and 6 months after the sale, suddenly they find out that you did not disclose that you knew that there was caissons on that hillside and that was all falling down, and then the house started to fall down and you didn't disclose that, you could be in real trouble. So we want to have a clean transfer so that nobody can come back to you with problems later, especially major problems, something like that. And I had something like that where the house started falling down the hill. It was in Glendale, up on a hillside, and the house started to move. Thankfully, well, maybe not thankfully, it was during escrow. So it was a huge rain during escrow, the house started to move. So speaking of which, let's go into legal and opening and closing of your escrow. Obviously, if you've bought or sold anything, there's contracts, extensive contracts, and a lot of contracts in real estate. And they're all CAR forms, and they're standardized pretty much depending on the transaction. So there's the timelines as far as opening and deposits and earnest money and all the detail that goes into the contracts. Each one of those points can be a deal killer depending on how well you vetted the buyers. If you haven't got experience in all this, if your agent is all about bluster and it's flashy on the internet and suits and ties and comes in and is going to do this great job for you, if they're not real diligent on the close and all the nuanced detail of the contracts, then you could get into trouble. Number one, you could get tied up forever. Generally, it should go smoothly if you vet the buyers well and that they're playing by the rules and you keep them on schedule. Buyers tend to be weaker before escrow, and then after escrow they have more leverage because now they've got you tied up, right? You can't go out to other offers once you've opened escrow. You can boot them, but that takes time. All this stuff takes time. So you give them a certain amount of time to get their paperwork together and their closing, whether it's 30 days, 45 days, 60 days. Buyers all puff. So we all expect that they're going to say they're stronger and greater than they are. You also check with their lender to make sure, and whoever their mortgage brokers are, to make sure that everything they're saying is legit. I've been in a million where you start to vet the buyer agreement and the buyer offer, that it's not, that they're really puffing. They're hoping to lock you in and then start figuring out if they can raise the financing. Not in your favor. So definitely want to make sure that especially in the seller's market, you want to make sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. Now, I come from both, so I'm doing loans and sales. So in the loan side, I can cut through the chase very quickly and see all their ducks are in a row, and from the lending side and how far along in that process they are. They have to put up their earnest money deposit, but also their major deposit, whether they have the cash there to make the deposit, and depending on how much they put down. And if you're sort of a fixer and they're coming in all cash, that's one thing. But if they're financing, and there's various levels of financing, and I'm very familiar with all that. So they might be doing all traditional financing where they're putting 20, 30, even 40% down. The less they're putting down, the more they have to finance, the harder it's going to be. So you're going to look at those offers. You may have a high offer, but they're only putting 10% down. Those are the 5 must-dos. I'd love to have your business, so any more information, or if you want me to come through and give my assessment on your property and potential listing and make a listing presentation, I'm happy to do that.